Hi, today I'm going to do a video about talking about Scotland's economy, the current state of Scotland's economy, and argue on whether Scotland's economy is going to collapse at some point in the future due to different reasons occurring in their country, as well as other things which would happen in the future in terms of world economics as well. Okay, so let's talk first of all about how the Scottish Parliament came into being, what exactly devolution actually is, and how everything started off in terms of Scotland. So, in the 1920s, the Labour Party, which was founded in 1900 by Labour Party members, working class people in trade unions and so on, had a strong stance on devolution in the 1920s, on devolution to transfer power from London to local areas in the local community. However, in the late 30s and 40s, they decided to scrap the policy and just concentrate on their other policies because, I don't know, it might have been not as popular, people might not have liked it. Different issues, really, why they didn't decide to get rid of it. However, then, later on, in the 1970s, James Callaghan, who was the Conservative Labour Prime Minister from 1976 to 79, I believe, just started to discuss the idea of bringing devolution back as one of Labour's main flagship policies, which they were thinking about doing. And they started off by holding a referendum in Wales as well as other parts of the country to discuss about having a parliament for Wales to basically control its own finances, as well as Scotland and Ireland, Northern Ireland. However, they had the referendum and the result did show that the people wanted it. However, there wasn't a big enough turnout, as there was a certain set of requirements which was needed in order for it to be passed. And through the use of the referendum, not all these requirements were met, so it meant that the idea was once again scrapped. So, now look, in the 1920s, still not look in the 70s, and then Labour, the 1990s, late 1990s, Tony Blair, and early 2000s, Tony Blair, UK Prime Minister from 1997 to 2007, decided to reintroduce devolution to local areas. And in 1998, through the Scottish Act, which meant that Scotland had its own parliament, it meant that Scotland now had a elected parliament in its own local country. And in the election, Labour won 58 seats out of 129 in the Scottish Parliament, and there were 7 seats short of a majority, an overall majority in the country. However, then it was decided to held 1 year after the UK general election. However, after several years, as we know now, as we can see in Scotland, it shows the collapse of the Labour Party vote, and the SNP has become a bigger and bigger voice in Scotland in terms of their policies, their politics and other factors, which has resulted in them doing well. And in 2011 they won an overall majority, which was elected through the additional members system. However, that wasn't meant to happen. The original idea of devolution was so that no one party had an overall majority, but instead it was designed just to give power in local areas, but not produce a single winner out of that elections. So they won it, and then that system has basically continued. So in 2015, SNP did well. In 2016, they did well as well, and I probably imagine do well in the future. Now, the original idea for devolution given to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland was that it was designed to basically create areas in the UK which would be sort of permanent Labour heartland. So the original idea which Tony Blair came up with was that if we could create a situation where you had lots of policies in Labour and Labour influence in areas, particularly through the use of devolution, then a lot of people say, right, Labour's working in the local area, so next general election I'm going to vote for Labour. While beforehand they may have voted for Conservatives, Lib Dems, and other political parties. However, as we've seen now, in more recent times, you could say that the Labour Party has failed to achieve that objective of creating Labour heartlands in local areas through the use of devolution. As in the 2015 election in Scotland, this is just in terms of Scottish seats, Labour lost 40 seats out of 41 they previously held in 2010, winning only one seat out of a possible 59 seats, while the SNP gained 50 seats, gone from a very small 6 seats which it had at the time in 2010 to winning 56 seats out of 59 in 2015. So they were only 3 seats short of winning all the seats in Scotland, so I mean there's different arguments you could still make for that, but it seems to be quite clear now in terms of Scotland as well as other areas that devolution has not achieved Labour Party policy of creating areas in the UK which are designed to create Labour votes from other parties. But yeah, that's a argument you could make, but it's just down to your opinion. However, let's now talk about Scotland's economy in its current situation. So you have Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland. She gained that position through Alex Salmond resigning through the Scottish independence referendum, which resulted in Scotland staying part of the UK. And she then held that. She then got that position through him resigning very shortly afterwards. Now, Nicola Sturgeon's making it sound like Scotland's economy is doing great. SNP politics and socialist policies are making Scotland a very attractive place to put your money into and create lots of jobs, reduce unemployment, do everything a party should be doing to help make the country a better place to live. However, let's have a look at the facts, because they're very important, and let's see if that's actually true. So let's start with unemployment. Unemployment in Scotland is now 4.6%, which is the lowest rate of unemployment Scotland has ever had so far, which is good. However, one of the problems in Scotland is that 545,000 people in Scotland work in the public sector. Now, this makes up 20.9% of the total workforce in Scotland who are currently in some sort of employment. Now, when you add that onto unemployment, people who are not working, when you add 20.9% onto 4.6%, you end up getting a figure of 25.5%, which means that 25.5% of people in Scotland rely on the state, the government, as their main source of income. Now, for me, that's pretty worrying, because 25.5% of people, that's one out of every 4 people, just above that, rely on the state as their main source of income. So it should come no surprise then that a lot of people in Scotland are very pro-socialist, pro-big government, pro-equality inequality, stuff like that. Because if you have a situation where 25.5% of people rely on the state, it means that if you were to elect the Conservatives into Scotland in power, or any party which is on the centre right or the right of politics, then it would mean that probably a lot of those jobs would probably go, and they would be more driven on creating business sector jobs. So 25.5% of people relying on the government as their main source of income. No surprise that a lot of people support SNP, Green Party, Labour, Lib Dems even. Also as well, that because Scotland has so many business sector jobs, it means that they're currently running a budget deficit of £14.9 billion per year. Now, for the average person, that may say that's not too much when you compare it to America's budget deficit, because they've got a bigger budget deficit in the UK as well as the whole. However, the problem with that is that Scotland's budget deficit of £14.9 billion per year, this is in 2014-15, that makes up 9.7% of GDP. So Scotland's debt to GDP ratio is 9.7%, which is the largest budget deficit in Europe. So not only does Scotland have a lot of people, 25.5% of people working for the government, in the government sector, earning a lot of their money through the government, but also as a result of that, they're currently running a budget deficit of 9.7% of GDP, which is the biggest in Europe, which is 14.9 billion. So again, that shows you that Scotland's economy is not doing amazing. And also as well, if you were to exclude North Sea revenue oil, then their budget deficit would go from 14.9 billion to 16.7 billion, meaning that it's been raised again by almost 2 billion, 1.8 billion increased. So that means that their debt to GDP ratio, Scotland's North Sea revenue wasn't included, and it'd be 11.9% GDP per year deficit. So that again shows that Scotland's revenue, their budget deficit is getting bigger if you were to get rid of the other things which is generating their money. So that's a big problem. But then, due to the collapse of the oil prices in the 2014 Scottish independence referendum, SNP was saying we can fund a lot of stuff through oil revenues, right? Now that's probably a load of rubbish as well, because due to the collapse of the oil just shortly after they decided to remain part of the UK, Scotland's oil revenues went from £1.8 billion per year in August 2015 to £60 million per year in August 2016. So in the space of 1 year, Scotland's oil revenue has collapsed by 1.74 billion due to the decreased price of oil per dollar. So again, that isn't too good of a fact, but that's their policies. Also as well, Scotland's total exports, what they make themselves and then sell it to other countries in UK and Europe, in America, which is our main three trading partners. That's also decreased in 2014 by 3.2%, from £28.4 billion pounds in 2014 to £27.5 billion in 2015. So they're making less products and they're getting less money for it because they're making less. Productivity is slowing down in Scotland, which is again having a negative effect in their balance of trade. I mean that they import a lot of stuff, however they export less, which means that they have a bigger budget deficit in terms of balance of trade deficit. Also as well, with Scotland's onshore oil revenues, without Scotland's onshore oil revenues, They've been running a budget deficit of 10% of GDP for 13 years. So if you were to get rid of all revenues altogether, then they would have been running a budget deficit of 10% of GDP for 13 years straight, which is 130% of GDP, which anyone could say that's probably enough to bankrupt a country quite quickly if you were to get rid of that oil revenues, which is again a very bad doom and gloomy sign in the UK, in Scotland. Tax revenues in Scotland are growing as well at a slow rate compared to the other countries in the UK as well. So they're earning less tax per year than other countries in the UK. So it means that they're having problems there, not collecting enough money to make sure that they can fund everything they want to fund, which if they did that, then they would probably be able to get rid of this budget deficit they have, or reduce it at least, which would be better, but they're not currently doing anything on that. Also as well, GDP per capita in 2011-12 was £10,700 per person income. That's now £10,000 per year in 2015-16, which is £700 less than what it was then, so again, not a good figure. Spending per person in Scotland is £1,400 higher per person in Scotland's economy compared to the rest of the UK. This is according to GERS. So it stands for General Economics for Scotland or something. Which it's 9.3% government expenditure and revenue bulletin 2014 to 15, or £12,800, which is 9.3%. That's how much they're spending more compared to the rest of the UK. And as well, in order for Scotland to get rid of its budget deficit it would have to either increase taxes by 16% in Scotland to get rid of its budget deficit to get to a balanced budget, or decrease spending by 14%, or a combination of the two in order to get to a balanced budget, which is not good. Increased taxes means that people have less money to spend, which is not good for the country as a whole. Or cutting spending, that will probably result in lots of job losses because a lot of people rely on income. Also as well, during the independence referendum, oil was over $80 per barrel in 2014. It has now decreased to $51.20, which is quite a big drop, which is what $51.20 is what it is today. However, before that it was even lower than that. The UK currently has a budget deficit of £56 billion per year. However, Scotland's budget deficit, as I've said before, is £14.9 billion. So Scotland make up 26.61% of the UK's overall budget deficit, which is quite a high amount, as the UK earns £716 billion per year, but spends £772 billion per year. So again, that's the problem. Scottish revenue is £53.4 billion per year, while spending is £68.4 billion per year. With health spending being the highest, £11.5 billion per year. Then you have education. Education's free up to and including university. So it's free for primary school, secondary school, college, university. Scotland is the only country in the UK to have free education up to and including university. While the rest of the UK we have tuition fees, which you have to pay for £9,000 per year for people in the UK doing a degree in a subject. And also as well, they spend £2.8 billion on policing and £2.7 billion per year on transport in Scotland, which is a slight breakdown of their spending. And Scottish economy is predicted to grow 2.2% in 2017, which is 0.3% less than what was predicted in terms of GDP growth. So they're predicted to grow by 2.5%, it's now been degraded to 2.2%. And also as well, net job employment increased by 36,800 in Scotland, which is 8,200 jobs less per quarter than what it was in November. So, giving you all those facts there, and from what you can probably tell watching this, is that Scotland's economy is not in the best shape. And that I probably imagine that if they did go independent in the Scottish referendum, which had an independence, if they were to go independent, then Scotland's economy would probably collapse at a quicker rate than what it is now, because in Scotland's policies they stated that they're going to keep the pound sterling. However, George Osborne, David Cameron and other Conservative Party members at the time, David Cameron was the Prime Minister during the time of the referendum and George Osborne was a Chancellor. And they stated that if Scotland were to go independent, then the pound Scotland would not be able to keep the pound. So Scotland then moved to phase 2, which is joining the euro. Now, in order to join the euro, you need to have a GDP debt ratio per year of 3% GDP or less. However, as I've stated to you just then, Scotland's GDP ratio to debt is 9.7%. So 6.6% more than what's required in order to join it. So Scotland probably wouldn't have been able to join the euro either. So the only option I think you've got left there in that case then, if they were to not be able to keep the pound or join the euro, is that they would have to create their own currency. Now, creating your own currency costs quite a lot of money, and I probably imagine that would cost Scotland's economy as well, just to create their own currency, and that would probably increase their budget deficit even more. However, I think in terms of Scotland's economy, where it is now and where it's going to go, I think it's going to be like Greece's economy, where in Greece you had the Panthelic Socialist movement, which was led by people such as George Papandreou and other Greece prime ministers at the time, as Greece is and still is a socialist sort of country, you could say, even though the New Democratic Party is currently leading in the polls, which is a centre right-wing to right-wing political party. You could argue that Greece is still a socialist country, and that Scotland's economy is very similar to that. It's very socialist sort of beliefs, because the Conservatives are not polling the highest figure, they're polling about 20 to 25%, while the other 75% of people, most of them are all on the left or on the centre, somewhere on the left. And in Greece's economy, what ended up happening was that before the Greece economy collapsed, was that year on year, Greece's economy was gradually increasing in terms of its economic growth. However, once the financial crisis hit, it meant that a lot of the country in Greece, their tourist industry, which got them a lot of money, that collapsed. And also as well, because they weren't fully prepared for it, and they also had a lot of government sector jobs like Greece has got now, and that they all went because the IMF and the EU implemented austerity measures, and it meant that Greece's economy collapsed. And 8 years on from that, Greece's economy is still in a very bad way. Unemployment's at 25%, youth unemployment's just below 50% now, but it's still in a very bad way. And I think what you're going to find is that in some point in the future, when there is another either financial crisis or something like that, because economists are saying that there's going to be some sort of financial crisis in the future due to the world budget deficit increasing in countries such as America and other countries in the world where they have a budget deficit. They're saying that there could be one in the future. So I think you find is that if there is another global financial crisis, then Scotland's economy is probably going to crash and burn like Greece's has, because of the fact that there's just too many government sector jobs. You know, to Greece to keep those jobs going means that they have to spend budget deficit after budget deficit after budget deficit year on year on year just to keep those jobs afloat. However, once financial crisis hits, then IMF probably get involved, look at the worst affected countries and say to countries such as Scotland, you're going to have to cut spending where those cuts are going to fall. And that's probably going to result in, most likely, result in Scotland losing a lot of its government sector jobs it currently has. So I think, unfortunately, in some point in the future, Scotland's economy is going to collapse. UK's economy is going to be affected as well by that. Scotland's economy is going to decrease, they're going to earn less money. Their exports and their imports their exports probably decrease, their imports probably stay the same or maybe decrease as well, due to less people having less money to spend. And Scotland's economy is going to probably collapse unless it elects Conservative government at some point in the future. However, that probably won't happen because Scotland SNP are currently polling 50%, 50. The national vote, one out of every 2 voters in Scotland votes SNP. So I think you're going to find that Scotland's economy will collapse at some point in the future. It's just a case of when and how bad is the impacts going to be, depending on how big their budget deficit is and so on, how many government sector jobs they have. But I think that's going to be the end result of Scotland's economy. So yeah, that's the debate topic. Scotland's economy, is it going to collapse? I say yes, but it's down to your opinion. Again, you can base them on facts, so just your opinion as I've mentioned, but yeah, that sort of thing's going to happen. So if you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, share, and for more videos in the future. I'm going to be discussing more debates in the future in terms of UK politics as well in the future as well. Once I start to run out of topics to discuss, I'm probably going to have to talk about other countries as well. So I may end up talking about international politics, I was saying Scotland or the UK, but talk about in America, Spain, wherever, anywhere. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll do another video on Thursday discussing another topic, and I hope you enjoyed it, and goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.